really appreciate that. Sorry. Okay. Yes. As you know, my name is Sanam. I'm one of the academic staff at the School of Engineering and Built Environment, and I'm very delighted to be here and share the outcome of research on impact of COVID-19 on a student's lived experience. Just give me, sorry, 1 second. It's okay. Perhaps you all know that the coronavirus or COVID-19 has been identified in December 2019 in China, and then it spread globally, causing an ongoing coronavirus pandemic. So in response to this crisis, Griffith University, like any other university in Australia, has been making a number of changes to the way that we teach to support the students continue studying during the COVID-19 pandemic. The changes include the transition from the face-to-face to online teaching, and also meeting students online and doing the online group works, and also conducting different types of assessment, perhaps different to what we used to do traditionally. Now, within the School of Engineering and Built Environment, we are keen to know how our students are coping with this transition and what can we do to improve their experiences in this program of study. Sorry, I might need. Okay. So what are the aims of this research study? We have basically 3 aims. 2 of these are the short-term aims, and then 1 of them is the long-term aim. So the short-term aims are to investigate the impact of COVID-19 on student lived experience, including learning experiences, well-being, and achievement in their studies. The other short-term aim is to explore the opportunities for improving our way of teaching and learning to further mitigate disruptions caused by COVID-19. And the long-term aim is to understand opportunities for more effective forward planning to create resilient student learning, a learning environment amidst current and future disruptions. We identify 2 significance for this project. 1 is to support the school executive to have an evidence-based decision and plan strategies for students' retention through finding and identifying vulnerable group of students during pandemic, and to be and how we can support them effectively, and how we can allocate our budget more effectively to basically support academic staff as well as the students. Also, another significant would be to support academic staff to improve the students' learning experience through identifying most effective learning tools, the most effective assessment tool, and creating a resilient student learning environment amidst current and future disruptions. This is basically our team that involves 14 members. We've got a core research team, and as you can see here, we all have an industry partner, Dr. Amin Vakili, who is the consultant psychiatrist from Your Healthy Mind Clinic, and he helped us a lot to prepare the questionnaire regarding the well-being of the students, and I also analyzed the data regarding the well-being. We also have the academic stakeholders who helped us a lot to collect the data, and we are very thankful to them. What method did we use? Basically, we had 3 rounds of 15-minute survey over 1 year to investigate the impact of COVID-19 at different phases of student lived experiences. So phase 1, we had phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Phase 1 was at the end of trimester 1, 2020, and that would be about May 2020. Phase 2 was at the end of trimester 2, 2020, which was about end of October 2020. And then phase 3 would be T1, trimester 1 of 2021, which was May 2021. So what's the meaning of these 3 phases? Why do we have 3 different phases? The phase 1 is basically, we consider that as the early stage of pandemic, resulting in lockdown in Australia, and that causes urgent and disruptive transition from face-to-face to online learning and teaching environment. The phase 2, which was about end of the trimester 2, October, we we regarded that as a time that the students and teachers somehow started settling down in the new environment. And then phase 3 is basically this year, May this year, which is, you can see the ease of restrictions, and therefore we have some activities on campus and face-to-face. So that's the reason we have 3 different phases. In terms of the group of students that we considered undergraduate and postgraduate students from the civil engineering, electrical and electronic engineering, environmental engineering, and construction management programs. So on the right corner, right bottom corner here, you can see the courses that we have selected in trimester 1 and trimester 2. These are 2020, but obviously in 21 would be kind of a similar courses. We have the reason that we selected or nominated these particular courses, and that is one we wanted to have a majority of the participants to remain the same during the whole 1 year. And that's the reason that we nominated these particular courses. I actually need to mention that what I'm presenting today is the result of phase 1 and phase 2 of the study. Phase 3 needs to the data needs to be analyzed. We have collected, but we need to analyze the data. So what you see here is the result of phase 1 and phase 2 of the study. Now, for each round, we had a total of 32 closed or multiple choice questions. So it had the questionnaire had 3 parts. The first part is about the personal circumstances. We had 9 questions regarding that. The second part was the learning experiences. We had 11 questions. And then the third part was about the well-being response, and we had 12 questions. The personal circumstances are basically the demographics. So that relates to the age group of students, the gender, the residential status, whether they are international or domestic, their living arrangement, whether they have been impacted or basically tested positive for the coronavirus, their income, and etc. The second part is the learning experience, and that learning experience includes a student's preference of the assessment type or a student's preference of teaching method, the challenges that they had in terms of the infrastructure, the challenges that they had in terms of the off-campus studying, and etc. And the last part was the well-being responses, and that is basically the part that I was mentioned, done by Dr. Amin Vakili, who is a psychiatrist, and he used the standard Kessler psychological distress scale test, which they call it K10, and that's basically internationally used to measure the distress based on the anxiety and depressive symptoms that a person, or basically in this case our student, may have experienced in the most recent 4 weeks period. In terms of the number of the participants, in round 1 of the survey, we had 85 participants, but out of these 85 students or participants, only 52 completed the survey in the entire survey. And in round 2, we had 35 students participated, and out of that, only 21 students completed the entire survey. So the second round, the sample size was smaller. Now, let's look at the personal circumstances, the data that we collected and analyzed. But before I start, I would like to mention that from now on, when you see the blue bars, the blue bar means the result of the round 1 of survey, and the orange one means the result of the round 2 of the survey. In terms of the age group, you can see that majority of these students or participants are in the age group of 21 to 30. And that is mainly followed by this age group of up to 20. In terms of the gender, we in the round 1 and round 2, we've got kind of similar results. About 70% of students are male, or participants are male, and about 30% are female. Residential status, as you can see, what I mean is, whether they are Australian resident or basically international student on some temporary visa. So you can see that majority of the students, roughly about 60 to 70% of students are Australian resident or domestic students, and about 30 to 40% of students are international.
We ask students or participants about their living arrangement, whether they are living living alone, or they're living with someone else, or one person or more than 1% in the household. And we found that basically majority of participants are living with more than one person, which could be good in some aspects, that they still can have socialize and have some support. But on other aspect is that if we have more people in a house, that means that it will be a noisy house probably, and therefore their study and their performance might be affected by that. But as you can see here, majority of students are living with more than one person in their house. Then we ask them about their family situations. Do they if they are living with someone, do they live with a partner or family member? And if not, do they have a partner or family member in Australia, or they are overseas, or basically they don't have any partner or close family members in Australia or overseas? You can see here that majority of the participants are basically living with their family or their partners. But also you can see that if the blue one is the students who do not live with, do not have any partner or close family member, and the gray one is basically those that do not live with a partner or family, and they live overseas. They don't have, basically they don't have any support in Australia, and that is considerable. That is about 20 to about 30% of students do not have any partner or family support in Australia during the pandemic. We also asked them whether they have been tested positive for coronavirus, or they have a close family member or partner that tested positive for coronavirus. And you can see that in round one, only 4% of the participants mentioned that they tested positive for coronavirus, or they do have a family member, close family member that tested positive. And in round two, it's about 10%. But we have to be mindful that the sample size for the round two was small, so that really may not really represent. There are also, we ask about the household's income, because we know that may actually affect their level of depression and anxiety, and therefore the well-being, and they may that may actually affect their performance. And what you can see here is about 50% of the participant have their income going down, so their income has gone down. There is interesting that we've got some participants that their income has gone up, but you can see that about 50% of them have the income, their income has gone down. In terms of the discipline and the campus of the study, a majority of them are civil engineering at Gold Coast, followed by the civil engineering at Nathan. And about the level and the year of study for the participant, you can see that in round one of the survey, they are mostly undergrad second year, and in round two of the survey, they are mostly undergraduate students in the third year. But as you can see in two cases, in round one and round two, not many students are in fourth year, or they are postgraduate students. So that was basically the demographic that would help us to maybe provide some reasons about the data that we analyzed later on. So let's look at the learning and their learning experience during the pandemic. So we ask students about the access to on-campus learning before COVID-19. And you can see that most of the students basically attended the campus for nearly all timetable coursework, which is great. But then we asked them, okay, so you attended the on-campus timetable courses, but did you really enjoy them? And you can see that, again, majority of them mentioned that they either enjoyed all these sessions or most of the sessions.
Then we asked them about the number of the courses that they may have dropped during the pandemic. You can see that majority of them, they took all the same number of the courses as planned, and they didn't drop. But when we look at the percentage of students who actually stop studying or drop one or more courses, you can see that 17% of these students basically stop studying in one or more courses in round one, and then in round two, about 10% of them stop studying. We asked them about their final coursework mark because it was at the end of the trimester. So we asked them, what do they think? Do they think that they performed as well as they usually do, or they did not perform as well as they usually do? And you can see that only about 25% of students, they said that they did as well as they usually do. Whereas majority of students, about 60 or 70% of students, they said that they did not do as well as they usually do during the pandemic. Then we asked them about their GPA for that current trimester, and also their cumulative GPA so far in the program. So one is the average of that particular average of their coursework mark for one particular trimester, and then the other one is the average of their mark for all the courses that they have enrolled in so far in the program. So you can see that in those particular trimester that were within the pandemic, so the average GPA, or basically the GPA, is pass and the credit within the participants, and the cumulative GPA of those participants are between credit and the distinctions. So this basically tells us that their GPA has dropped, which is consistent with the previous question that we asked and their answer that they have provided, that they did not perform well as they usually do. Then we asked about the challenges that they've got with the technology during the COVID-19, whether there was a huge problem, whether they had a problem but they dealt with it, or they did not have any issue or challenge at all. So those technology that we considered are basically desktops and laptops, webcams, microphones and speakers, the small or digital pens. I'll be back to the detail. Smart or touch screens, those are bigger than the phone. Scanners, printers, poor internet access, internet download and upload speed, internet data limit, and communication software such as Teams, Blackboard, Zooms, and etc. So I have summarized all these in here. So then the team looked at basically two things. One is, where is the huge problem that the students couldn't deal with? And then we looked at where is the problem? If there is any problem, whether they have dealt with it or they haven't dealt with it, where is the problem? Where we can see the significant problem for students. So if you look at all these, yeah, the red one actually represents the huge problem that a student couldn't deal with it. And then the orange one represents the problems that the students have had, but they were able to somehow manage it and deal with it. And the green one means that they did not have any issue at all. So if I look at only the red ones, means that the significant problem, you can basically see that the printers and the scanners are the huge problem that the students couldn't deal with. It's about 20% of students. But if we want to find out what are the technologies that the students have had huge problem that they couldn't deal with, is actually the printers and the scanners. And that could be something that we can improve on, but maybe we can provide the support to students in that regard. And then we looked at the general problem, the problems that they could solve, or the problems that they couldn't solve. So it would be a combination of the red bar and the orange orange one, and see which one is actually a problem and which one is not really a problem. And you can see that the main problem is actually poor internet access. That is followed by the internet download and upload speed, and communication software, the Teams and Blackboard. They didn't know how to use the software at the beginning, and that followed by the printers and scanners. So in terms of the major issue that the students couldn't deal with it, about 20% of students had problem with the printers and scanners. But in terms of the problems, general problems, whether they deal with it or not, it would be the poor internet access, internet download and upload speed, and a communication software, Teams and Blackboard, printer and scanner. Then we moved to another question. We asked a student about the challenges of studying off campus during pandemic. So we asked them whether the noisy home environment was a challenge, and the child care responsibilities was a challenge, or elderly care responsibilities, sick partner or family member care responsibilities are the problems, or work from home commitment or increased work commitment. Again, we looked at two things. One is where the huge problem is, and then the second part is if there is a problem, whether they deal with it or not, where is it? Or what it is. So you can see, if I compare all these ones together, you look at the red bars, you can see that particularly in round one of the survey, the noisy home environment was a huge problem. And that is consistent with the students saying that they were living with more persons in the house, which make it very difficult. Some may watching TV where others are trying to study, so it would be very hard. So then we looked at the combination of the red and orange, which would be basically where is the problem? If there is any problem, whether they deal with it or not, where is it? And then you can see that that would be the noisy home environment again, the work from home commitment, and increased work commitment. Then we asked them about the range of communication tools between the teacher or instructor and the students, and which one they prefer. So the choices were the announcements, the Blackboard announcement, the Blackboard Collaborate Ultra, Blackboard discussion, emails, Microsoft Teams, the meetings or the sessions, and Microsoft Teams chat or the discussions. Then just for you to know, the red one is basically means they don't like it. The blue one means that they love it. And the white one means that they don't mind it. And then the kind of yellow one means, yellow bar means that they haven't used it at all. So basically we wanted to look at two things, the red bars, which means they don't like it, and also the blue one, which means that they love it. So if I compare all these different communication tools and try to look at the red ones and the blue ones, you can see that majority of the students like the announcement, emails, and Blackboard Collaborate Ultra as the communication tool. Now, many of us are basically academic staff are either using the Blackboard Collaborate Ultra. We all use announcements and emails, but I'm assuming, but some of us are using the Blackboard Collaborate Ultra and some of us are using Teams. But if you actually look at the data here for Blackboard Collaborate Ultra and the Teams, you can see more red bars and less blue lines when it comes to the Microsoft Teams compared to the Blackboard Collaborate Ultra. So maybe we want to consider Blackboard Collaborate Ultra rather than Teams. Also, we ask about their experience of range of the teaching methods. The options were whether they prefer the live stream lectures and tutorials, or whether they prefer the pre-recorded lectures and tutorials, or they prefer the instructor to provide the material in advance so they can read and review and then come to the tutorial or lecture session for the discussion. So then again, we looked at the red bars and the blue bars to see which one has less red bars and which one has more blue bars. And as you can see here, majority of the students, they prefer or they love the live stream lectures and tutorials as opposed to the pre-recorded lectures or having the lecture time for the discussion. So maybe we may consider having a live stream lectures and tutorial where you can have socialize and interact and engage maybe more with students. We also ask about their preference of the assessment method, the online assessment methods, because some of us were using the online assessment before, and some of us were not using. We were using the traditional way of writing the, the calculations, for example, and asking students to write a calculation on a piece of paper and submit. But then during the pandemic, they all have been transitioned to online. So then we ask the students which one they prefer. One option was for students to write down their calculations, scan it, make it as a PDF, and submit it. So basically, that will be a kind of an online version of what we were doing before. Then we asked them, what about the take-home exams, the multiple choice quizzes, and the short answer questions for the oral presentations. As basically you can see here, majority of EBE students are not really familiar with the oral presentations. They haven't used it yet. But in terms of the other assessment methods, what you can see here is that they prefer the take-home exams or the multiple choice questions. And that would be basically followed by these two, which would be the short answers and the online exam when the students write their answers and then scan and upload. And finally, we ask the students about their well-being. Before we start asking about their well-being, the current well-being situation, we ask them about whether they had any history of mental health issues. As you can see here, there is a consistency of the results from round 1 and round 2 of the survey. About 17 to 19% of students basically reported that they had history of mental health issues, and about 80% of students, they said that they did not have any mental health history of mental health issue prior to pandemic. So, but just one thing that has been realized is that what this data suggests is that 1 in 5 participants have the history of mental health issue, whereas this is slightly higher than the general population, which is 1 in 6. But again, our sample size is small, so that may not be very accurate data. Then we also ask about the history of learning disorders. And in round 1, about 15% of students mentioned that they do have the history of learning disorders, whereas in round 2, only about 5% of students said that they did have the history of learning disorders. Then we ask them about their current mental health and well-being. So that is basically the K10 results, as I mentioned, the K10 test results that I mentioned before. And in here, as you can see, the green one means that they are likely to be well. The kind of light yellow means that they are likely to have mild mental health disorder. The orange one means that they are likely to have moderate mental health disorder, and the red one means that they are likely to have severe mental health disorder. So if I combine this red one with the orange one, which means that these two together, which means the likelihood of having a severe mental health issue and a likelihood of having a moderate mental health issue, that would be striking. As you can see, it shows that about 50% of the participants are likely to have severe or moderate mental health issue during the pandemic in round 1. And it is consistent in the round 2 that about 50% of students or participants have some well-being issue, and that warrant an in-depth mental health assessment to be done. Then we try to find out the relationship between the well-being of the students and some parameters that we have studied. As I mentioned before, the sample size is not big. In fact, it's small. So we found some relationship between the parameters, but not many parameters. If we increase the number of the participants, we could have a bigger list of to showing the relationship between the well-being and different parameters. But what we found is that if you look at this data here, so we found a significant correlation between the well-being of the students and the internet access. And we found that the students, it should be here, the age group of students and the likelihood of a mental health issue. What you can see here, the orange one actually represents the age group of 21 and 30, and you can see the significant correlation between the well-being and the age group. Basically, the age group of 21 and 30 are more likely to have mental health issue during the pandemic. So that could be a vulnerable group of students. And then the other one is that we found that here, this orange one means that the lower performance, the student with the lower performance, we found significant correlation between the students who could not perform as usual and the likelihood of having a mental health issue. And I need to emphasize that the causational direction is not the main result or main conclusion here. We're not saying mental health is affecting the performance or the performance is affecting the well-being. We just find out a significant correlation between these two, but causational direction is something that needs to be further studied. We also found that students, this part is very interesting, and we found that students with the good internet access are likely to be well. And a student with the good data, students that do not have any internet data limit problem are likely to be well. So that could be something that we may be able to do in this school to help students in a vulnerable group to have a better well-being. So in conclusion, we found that 50% or more of participants had moderate to severe likelihood of well-being issue, and that warrant in-depth mental health assessment by the professionals. We found that 15.4% of participants reported one or more learning disorders, and 17.3% of participants reported being diagnosed with mental health issue at some point in their life. There is a meaningful relationship between the participant age group, lower performance, that means not performing as well as previous trimesters, internet access and internet data limit, and the likelihood of well-being issues during the pandemic. The age group that is more likely to have experienced high level of well-being issue is 21 to 30, and a student who did not report to have any problems with internet access are more likely to be well from the mental health perspective. Additionally, students who reported no limits on their internet data are more likely to be well from mental health perspective. Or in other words, a reliable internet access with no limits on data might be regarded as a protective factor for students' mental health. A student who reported to have lower performance compared to previous trimesters are likely to have well-being issues. And the last one I want to mention, we had, it's not yet, we needed maybe 5 more participants to conclude it, but I thought, so it's, we didn't really, we can conclude it, but I thought I'd just provide it here. Students who reported to have experienced any problem with working from home are more likely to not to have experienced any well-being issue, and that might be because of their resilience. So the next step and the publication for us would be to analyze the round 3 of the survey, pending funding request, and we are preparing a journal and a conference paper to be submitted very soon. And that's the end of my presentation, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Sanam, for this interesting presentation and sharing interesting data on student experience with COVID-19. Let's see if we have questions. Can I just ask you first before people start putting questions in the chat? So you ask students from different years, right? Year 2, 3, 4. Did you look at maybe any correlation between like year 2, year 3, and 4 and how they actually react to COVID? So, and also, did you have any data for first year students?
Oh, so that I answered the second question first because that's easier. The answer is no. We excluded the first year students. So it's the results that I have presented are the data that's based on the data that have been collected from second year, third year, and fourth year undergraduate students and postgraduate students. So yes, we excluded that. The second question, sorry, I forgot. The relationship between the second year undergraduate student and third year undergraduate students and their well-being. We have tried, but because of the small sample size, we will not conclude anything. If we have a bigger sample size, probably we can, but unfortunately with the current sample size, we were not able to find a meaningful relationship.
Thanks. No, I'm looking at the chat. Everybody says thanks for interesting presentation. Just want to see if there are any questions there. Some technical difficulties. Paul is asking, are we going to stick with Blackboard? I'm not sure if you can answer this question.
Well, actually, yes. The data here, here shows that if you compare the Blackboard Collaborate Ultra with the Teams, you see more black bars, red bars and less blue bars for the Microsoft compared to the Blackboard Collaborate Ultra, where basically red bars means they don't like it and blue means that they love it. So yes, if you are using Blackboard Collaborate Ultra, perhaps you want to stick to that. If you're not using Blackboard Collaborate Ultra, using Teams, maybe you can ask your students whether they like Collaborate Ultra or Teams, and see what would be the response from them. But based on this data, it's better maybe they use Collaborate Ultra, and this is what they love.
Thanks. Now, we have an interesting comment and question from Rabin from James Cook University. So comment is about scanning challenge. It's very interesting. So at James Cook, they actually make instruction video to show how to use smartphones to scan. So I think, I'm not sure if we're doing this at Griffith or not, so just to help students. Also, question is, did you see a lot of plagiarism cases when take-home exams were conducted? I'm not sure if you can answer this question.
Yes, that we didn't consider. I mean, we didn't ask. I mean, we can ask, and we didn't analyze those data. Personally, I didn't use the take-home exams, so I can't really also recommend anything or answer this question because I didn't really use the take-home exams. I know that some of my colleagues have used it, but I didn't. I actually used for my courses. I asked the student to write down their answers on a piece of paper, making it as a PDF and submit it. And in some cases, we use the multiple choice questions and the short answer questions. But sorry, I can't really answer that question because that was not within our scope.
Thanks. A few people ask if we can share this presentation. Yes, this session is recorded and then they will be linked. So we're going to upload it, this presentation. If you want to look at the presentation, we have a website for our seminars and we put all the links there for all past presentations and for this one. So it will be there. Please check the website. Hong is making comment that a smaller number of courses use Teams. Maybe that's why students don't like it. Well, maybe that's true because in my case, I don't use Teams. I use collaborative algebra. Maybe students don't really know like much about. What do you think about it? Can you comment on this one?
Yeah. I'm not sure how I can answer
comment.
that.
It's fine.
Yeah, so it really depends. It also depends on the courses that we considered, and they are not very small courses. They are mainly large or medium courses, if I can bring it up. These courses that you see here, they are mainly kind of like medium or to large courses. So that's why I'm not sure whether I can answer that question or not,
Okay.
because we did not consider
If you
this
cannot
small
answer,
courses.
it's fine, you know. Okay, there is a comment from Guy. Guy saying it's like great presentations and things. And it would be nice to share it through this learning teaching exec team at EB, and also share it with more academics here. I think we'll do that one.
Sure. And also there will be a publication.
The publication, yeah, of course. We're going to read your publication too. So you're talking about, you didn't present it yet, but you said that your final phase, it's to talk to students, right? Okay. Do you do like focus groups, or how do you contact students, and like, how do you choose them? Like for your phase 3, right? You said you're gonna.
For phase 3, the results have, I mean, we have already collected data. So we collected the courses in such a way that majority of these participants remain in the same, basically remain the same over the 1 year. So for example, students who are taking mechanics of materials 1, we know that in the next trimester, they're going to take structural analysis, and the next trimester, they're going to take the IDP, integrated design project. So by doing so, we make sure that you know, students are within majority of the participants remain the same in the survey. And then we basically provided this. We provided a link to the survey under the Blackboard announcement page, and then asked the students to participate. But we did not have any kind of, what do you mean by focus group in that regard?
Didn't you say that you would do interviews with students? Or
no,
I was wrong. No,
it's just a survey. This survey that we have done. So it includes 32 closed or multiple choice questions. And then we provided a link of this basically survey on the course announcement page. And then we invited the students to participate.
Okay. Comment from Cheryl, note we still analyze. You still work, okay.
Yeah, so I think that's the bit that you might have heard, Ivan, around the T1 2021 data. So we really did want to see whether there were clear messages coming out of the first 2 rounds of data analytics before we went to analyze the third. So we're yet to do that analysis, and that will be good to include in the paper.
Yes, thanks, Cheryl, for clarifying this. Any more questions? So now then I'll just ask one or two. So this is really great what you did, and I really like it. It's very practical what you showed us, like how students experience, what kind of learning experience they have during COVID, because that this might actually go for like another trimester or maybe a year or 2. So it's always good to know like how our students doing. So did you have a chance, maybe not now, did you look at, you know, like different disciplines of students? So you were saying that most of students were civil engineering. Did you try to, maybe not yet, but maybe you'll do that. Did you try to link, you know, different disciplines to like what is going on with the student experience, or it's not in the scope of your study?
No, that was basically, we tried. That was basically the reason that we ask students in which discipline they are in and which year they are in. But again, because of this sample size, we were not able to find that the meaningful relationship between the COVID-19 and the discipline. The only meaningful relationship that we could find are some the protective factors and some risk factors. And the risk factors were, as I mentioned, the age group, and then the other one is the performance of students, and the protective measure would be the internet data limit and then internet access.
Thanks.
That's all good. But well, what we found basically main things, if I want to conclude, is that majority of the students had huge problem with the printer and scanner, and that could be something maybe easily solved for students to help them. And then looking at the problems in general that they have, and some of them actually has a significant correlation with the mental well-being, is the internet access and the internet data limit. So maybe we can work on that as well in the school.
Yes, thanks, Sanam.
That's all good.
Any more questions? Anybody would like to ask orally, not just maybe they don't feel uncomfortable writing question? Okay. Well, if it would be interesting to think of ways that students might be helped with connecting quality issues and home environments that can get in the campus. Things like access to student hub and Southport. That's a good comment from Paul. So there is a student hub in Southport, right, that they can access for better quality, right? Well, I think this is something that we can start thinking, and we have head of school and dean learning teaching, so we can think at these problems and see if we can provide students with better experience, better connection. Well, I'm not sure how we can solve the printer and scanner option. Maybe, well, can be done through the library or something, or we can make a video to teach them how to use scanner. That's what we did in James Cook University, right? Well, thanks for bringing this up. All this problem is like something that we should start thinking about. And if no more questions, I think I will conclude the session. And I want to thank you again, Sanam, and your team for doing this wonderful job. Looks like there were many people involved in this project, right?
That's right. Yes.
It's like about 10 or even more. You have a great team that you work with. Yeah, thanks you and your team for presenting this data. And thanks everybody for attending the session. And I would like to everybody of you have a nice afternoon.
And thank you so much, Yvonne, for giving us the opportunity to present the outcome of our research. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks everybody, and have a nice day.
Thanks. Have a nice day.